My name is Bervyn. I don't know most of your names, but I know that at least one thing about you and about me. We are all in the business of success and failure. Each one of us. And if you're a teacher, you are definitely in the business of success and failure. And there's no way we can actually get around that one. I've picked at the topic of my sharing today a line that I enjoy from a Simon and Garfunkel song. I don't know how many of you know this one. Hello darkness, my old friend. You know this one? Yeah. Well, I'm not going to sing it for you, but only because we don't have time. Okay. Okay. So, I'm not going to go too much. I had originally planned for us to actually share this with ourselves so that the interactivity is probably going to keep you going for the last few hour or so, last few minutes or so. But maybe a very quick one. How do you prepare to succeed in anything you do? Anyway. You sleep first. Wonderful. That's important. Yes. Eat. You make sure so you look after yourself. You sleep, you eat. What else do you do to prepare for a task? Research. You do your work to research. You find out what you need to do. Anyone else? You set your standards. Thank you very much. You have an idea of what success means to you. Right? You set the standard. And teachers, we all do that. We do that for our students, don't we? We set a certain standard, and that's where we hope our students will be able to achieve those standards. What else? You practice. And what do you practice? You practice things that will make you succeed. So we have phrases like practice makes perfect and things like that, right? And so we go through those things. We all do things in preparation for all the things that we do to help us succeed. Things that help you to fail. We don't. Not naturally, at least, right? It's not a natural thing. We don't think of failure, or we don't think about what we do with failure. We think about what we do towards success. And that's quite normal, but that for me is the first position that I will take with you around how we can rethink this a little bit. And that's why, hello darkness, my old friend. We need to make darkness a friend to begin with. And I really appreciated your sharing earlier on this morning, as it was with Mr. Joffel, right? Because they've embraced their darkness. They've taken it by the neck, looked at it, studied it, and decided to come out better for it. And that's an important part, because when we start talking about things like success and failure, and it's important in building resilience, we've talked a lot about resilience, and I'll probably refer to a few slides on that one in a short while. Failure is an essential part. But if we only think about success in all the things that we do, but we don't think enough about failure, we've only just prepared ourselves for one side without preparing ourselves for the other. Yet, we use phrases like, oh, we have to fail before we succeed. Oh, we want to be resilient, you have to fail and then you be resilient. So if you want to be resilient, do you need to be successful more, or do you need to be failing more? I'm an expert at failure, I'll tell you this. I've done it many times. And that's why I can stand and tell you about it, right? Well, what is it about failure that makes us want to avoid it? Is it really failure, or is it the consequence of failure that we're more concerned about? Is it retribution, someone scolding us, loss of faith, embarrassment, less sense of self-worth or personal pride, financial, material loss, loss of respect, wastage of resources, souring of a relationship, especially when failures in relationships, the finality of a situation, the end? What is yours? Okay, What is your relationship with failure? Maybe for a moment think about that. The times when you have failed, or the times when you've planned something that you want to succeed so badly in, what was it about failure that made you want to avoid it? If we understand that, we can actually address it better. As teachers, if we knew what failure to our students meant, we could help them overcome it or learn from it when and if that situation occurs. Right? So it needs for us to sometimes embrace that as a relationship. We need to examine our relationship with failure. We need to understand it ourselves. Why that is something I would avoid. And in most cases, it's one of those. Right? I recently had a failure in my life. I actually lost my job. I lost my job. Right? Didn't get on too well with my boss. He decided, you know what? I think this is not working. I've never lost my job. I've never been told, yeah, you should go on. You should leave. I was told that. Wasn't sure what I was going to do after that. And then I reconnected with a friend of mine whom I've known for years, and this is where we are. And this is what we do. I am so happy I lost my job. But I wasn't prepared for it, I'll tell you that much. Okay, so let's try and understand failure a little bit on a bit of a spectrum. Right? There is failure at one end where it's about exploratory testing. Things that a lot of scientists and researchers do, they want to test a new product, a new service, they want to try something brand new. That is exploratory, and therefore if you fail, yeah, most people say, yeah, that's fine, go again, try again, try again, try again. That's what they call praiseworthy failure. That's the kind of failure that I think most of us would embrace. It is at this end, the deviance side of failure, the part where you do not follow prescribed processes. According to my boss, that was where I was, because I disobeyed his order. He gave me an instruction, I disobeyed it, I didn't think it was the best thing to do, I did my own thing, he didn't like it, end of story. Right? So my failure was the deviance side of the house, not praiseworthy. Not praiseworthy. Right? But there is a spectrum there around failure. So what kind of failure will you embrace in your next task? And then what is the consequence of that failure that you are prepared to accept? Not something for us to brush aside. I do think it's very important for us to think about. All right. I want to talk a little bit more about resilience, and I'll quickly go through these because I think in our minds we already know roughly what resilience is all about, and I think the speakers before me have already alluded, if not directly explained to us what that is. Essentially, it is about the ability to bounce back or recover. From what? From failure. Right? You don't bounce back from success. You jump higher from success. But resilience is about bouncing back, and it's bouncing back from failure. So you want to build resilience. If we want to build resilience, we need to actually put people through failure. We need to embrace it. We need to even structure it. There's an article that's just come out in The Guardian. It's a newspaper in the UK. And I didn't flash it out here, but there's a link to it. I can share that at some stage. It talks about how we need to fail better. How do you fail better? It's really, really preparing for it. Types of resilience, you can read that. I won't go through these. Honestly speaking, if you Google it and you say types of resilience, you will see this whole list here, right? So I'm not going to spend time on that one. What contributes to resilience? The way individuals view and engage the world. So our perspective is important, and that's the one I will actually focus on a little bit more. And then the availability and quality of social resources, ourselves, our friends, And then of course our own coping strategies. Not going to go through each of these. The one I'm actually going to be focusing on a little bit more is about the way we view and engage with the world, in particular, how we view and engage failure. Alright? But that's just for us there. Okay, we've all heard this phrase, or have read it at least. By failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail. I think we get it. Yeah? And usually used with athletes a lot. But why should one prepare to fail? To avoid catastrophic failure. The one thing we don't want in our understanding of the continuum of failure and the consequences of failure is to avoid catastrophic failure. The one thing that will actually be such a catastrophe, it makes it very hard to bounce back. Right? Let's be absolutely honest. When we fail and we can bounce back, we start building our resilience. But what we don't want is to fail to a point where we cannot bounce back. So we are trying to avoid catastrophic failure. We start first by understanding a little bit more and defining what that might be. But how does one prepare for failure? Well, like I said, you first have to welcome failure into our lives. Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again. Reframing. Now, here I actually, had a video put up for it, but no, we'll do it at the end. I will show you what it means when we say we have to reframe failure. We need to think about it in a very, very different way. And I will save that to the end a little bit. The other 4 bullet points I think are quite, some of the things people have already mentioned to some extent. I do think one part, and I want to bring out the last bullet point again because earlier on it was mentioned about having a growth mindset. One of the key things around resilience and its relationship to failure is the adoption of a growth mindset. What is a growth mindset? That every opportunity is a learning opportunity. I say that again. Every opportunity is a learning opportunity. COVID-19, school being called out, right? Suspension from school hours, that's a learning opportunity. So that growth mindset is where I think it's important. The moment we have that mindset, the first thing that clicks in when we have failure is, what can I learn from this? What can I learn from this? Yeah. Michael Jordan, I know there's a basketball tournament going on in the Philippines this period. I don't think he'll be here. But if you know Michael Jordan, this is one of his famous quotes. It's the whole idea that, you may have seen me succeed so many different times, but you don't know the number of times that I failed, and that's the number of times I have failed. And that is why I succeed. It's a very, very important thing for us to adopt here in our perspectives. All right? I have failed so many times, I've missed so many shots, and that is why I succeed. Okay, mindfulness. Now, I just want to throw this in as a little bit because we've all talked about mindfulness a little bit, and the thing about failure is there are so many things going on in our heads when we fail. What's mom going to say? What's my teacher going to say? What are my friends going to be? Will I get to the next level in school? Will I, yada, yada, yada. There are so many different things that will go on in our heads, right? Because the consequences, and as my colleague talked about, the emotions will come up first. And when the emotions come up and they're not being controlled, guess what? You're everywhere. We've all done that. We've all been there. Right? So we need to be a bit more mindful about this. And what is being mindful about? Is about, again, having that growth mindset, knowing what is an internal locus of control. I can come back to it in the next slide. And have a quick read about what being mindful. The one I really enjoy there on that list of mindful about is the last one that says humor. Life is too long not to laugh. life is too long not to laugh. We have to laugh. We need to see the lighter side of things and be able to look at that and say, you know what? That's really, really funny when you think about it. Like my colleague, I was also from the army, except that I wasn't a regular. I was in Singapore. We have a national service and a conscript army arrangement. So at the age of 18, I was conscripted to the military, and I was not used to the military at all. And when I went in there, the first thing I was exposed to was a loudmouth drill sergeant. Foul-mouthed drill sergeant, as is sometimes associated with the military when you've got a no-nonsense drill sergeant, right? You see it in the movies. Oh, I had that. A guy that used with every sentence that came out of his mouth, it was a 4-letter word in different languages. And being a person who was not used to that, it was a shock. And then I looked to my left and I right, and there's this guy that was standing there, and he was holding his laughter in. So, of course, the drill sergeant saw him and, of course, took him to task for it. But at the end of it all, sorry, he didn't take him to task, he took us all to task for it because he was laughing. But at the end of that, when we were all over, I was asking him, I said, what were you laughing about? And he said, you know, if you think literally what he just said in that sentence, it doesn't make sense. Try it. I mean, of course, don't really try it, but if you try and string a sentence with all just foul language, it doesn't make sense. That's why it was funny. He could see the humor in a situation like that. And I took my hat off to him because he's one of those who actually, you know, the military was a cinch for him. It's really nothing. Talking about locus of control, there are some things we do have control over, and there are some things we don't. Focus on the things that we have control over, not the things that we don't. So even in the responses to, or the consequences to failure, the list that I threw out earlier on, even in that one, there are some things you have no control over. Focus on the things that you do have control over, and it's largely going to be your own self, loss of face and embarrassment. I think if I go back to that list, that would be the one. The rest of it you have no control over. Focus on that one. And once you get over that one, you're on to a good start. Know thyself, know thy enemy, 1,000 battles, 1,000 victories. Earlier on, Daphne, you stood up here and said, I'm not an expert. I'm not an art therapist. But you came out here and you did a wonderful and very clear presentation. You did. And why? You knew yourself. She knew herself. She knew what it meant to her. That brought it up. And she knew what was ahead of her, and what her enemy wasn't a real enemy, but it knew what art can do to the things that were challenging in her life and to the people in her life, what it can do for children. So she knew herself, she knew the enemy, 1,000 battles, 1,000 victories. That's an expert. You know? All right, so I end up with this one. It's not by failing to prepare that we prepare to fail. By failing to prepare for failure, we prepare to fail. So I'm going to ask us now to actually prepare for failure. All right? Now, I say thank you, but I'm going to end off with this video. Please watch this one and listen to the person here. Context. This person who's being interviewed is also a basketball player. They had just lost the season, and he had to face a group of reporters, and the reporters were going to ask him a question. All right, so I will end off here. Thank you very much. Just watch the video.
That's Bud the exact same question, but I'm curious for you. Do you view this season as a failure?
Oh my God. Okay, because I'm not that up. You asked me the same question last year, Eric. Okay, do you get the promotion every year on your job? No, right? So every year you work is a failure. Yes or no? No. Every year you work towards something, towards a goal, right? Which is to get a promotion, to be able to take care of your family, to be able, I don't know, provide the house for them or take care of your parents. You work towards a goal. It's not a failure. It's steps to success, you know. And if you've never, I don't want to make it personal. So there's always steps to it, you know. Michael Jordan played 15 years, won 6 championships. The other 9 years was a failure? That's what you're telling me? No, I'm asking you a question. Yes or no?
No, I mean, I don't think so. No.
Okay, exactly. So why you asking me that question? It's a wrong question. There's no failure in sports. You know, there's good days, bad days. Some days you are able to be successful. Some days you're not. Some days it's your turn. Some days it's not your turn. And that's what sports is about. You don't always win. Some other people's gonna win. And this year, somebody else is gonna win. Simple as that. We're gonna come back next year, try to be better, try to build good habits, try to play better, not have a 10-day stretch with playing bad basketball, you know, and hopefully we can win a championship. So 50 years from 1971 to 2021 that we didn't win a championship, it was 50 years of failures? No, it was not. It was steps to it, you know, and we were able to win one. Hopefully we can win another one. You know, sorry that I didn't want to make it personal because you asked me the same question last year, and last year I was in the right mind space to answer the question back.